what do you think about standardized education and standardized testing? And then what are your plans if you get elected to do something about it?
It actually is my favorite. Well, being a practicing educator and working in the public school system in Dallas, I can tell you that standardized testing developed and grew into something it was never meant to be. Standardized testing has got a stranglehold on effective teaching that should be going on in the classroom. Now, you'll hear people say to you, well, yeah, but what's wrong with teaching to the test? Because the students need to know that. True, everything on the test is something that the students need to know. But let me tell you this. I want you to take a look at the room you're in, this big room you're in. If this is the education your child should be receiving, this section right here is all they're getting, because that is what's going to be on the test. Now, why does it happen that way? Because of the punitive nature of the tax test, which was not original either. It has developed into a punitive item, and who is punished? The teachers. Oh, you didn't do your job, please come to the office. We're going to take your classroom away from you. There's all types of intimidation that come to our teachers because they didn't make that magic mark. Now, they can struggle and they'll make that magic mark by teaching the test, but you can bet your child is not getting the full education. So the next time you drive by a school and you see a sign out there that says recognized or exemplary, remember, it's for taking a test with a very narrow field of questions on it. Very narrow field of questions on that test. So I'm opposed to the standardized testing right now as we know it in this state.
Okay, I agree. I think that the TEA needs some major rehaul. I think that our accountability system, it was intended for good purposes. I think it had unintentional consequences, and we're seeing them today. So I definitely think that a lot of research needs to go into the TEA. It's not my favorite division of the school board charter. So I agree with George in the fact that yes, the TEA needs a major rehaul, the assessment needs a major rehaul, and we need to focus on the best possible outcome for the kids and their educational tools that we give them. Okay.
Is that still in our time frame?
Oh.
Give us 30 seconds each.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Assessment is a difficult thing because there's a lot of variables, I believe. I think that as I've been doing research on this position and on the board, I think that I would like to do a little more research on testing assessments, because right now what they're doing is not okay. I just recently, yesterday, I believe I received a notice saying that they're going to artificially inflate scores, which is not okay. That's not holding the students, the teachers, the schools accountable for the education that you are providing.
Okay, well, the artificial inflation of scores became effective on last year's test, so that's already happened. Oh, the TPN. The tax test, as we know it today, is fading out, and as you know, the STAR, or the end of course exam, is fading out. Let me tell you what an issue with that is. On the tax test, it's a test given once a year: English, social studies, math, and science, at the end of the year. The end of course exams will be given at the end of each course. Now, in that regard, it is a plus, because good pedagogy tells you that you should test the child as near the subject area of your teaching as you possibly can. The tax test often, especially in our sciences and biology, will test 2 years down the road something a student had 2 years prior. That is not fair to the student, and often accounts for the low grades we see in our science test. The problem with the EOC, this replacement, this wonderful replacement, is something you'll have to read about.
For the last few decades, left-wing academics have written U.S. history curriculum as a very negative view of America. In October of 2009, the U.S. history writing team panel in Boston presented to the state board a U.S. history proposed curriculum that viewed America as exploitative, racist, and imperialistic. The board spent its meetings in January, March, and May balancing that curriculum so that it told both sides of the issue. My concern is that both of you on your websites criticized the board for politicization of the standards. And my question is this: where do you draw the line between politicization of a left-wing oriented curriculum versus a balancing act which presents students with both sides of the U.S. history story?
Thank you, Ms. Raines. We were actually talking before the meeting or forum happened, and I really believe that the onset of that is picking the right committees. You know, there were a lot of left-wing, very liberal people picked for those committees. And fortunately, you got on and you got to, you know, have a voice. And unfortunately, the board did see that there were discrepancies. But I really think that it boils down to picking those committees well. And I think that, you know, I just really feel like the state board let us down on picking the right committees this time. So I don't know if it's a political issue. I just really feel that they did not do their job in picking the right committees.
Now, for a number of years, the Democrats ran that board. And that was the onset of the issue that Ms. Raines just spoke of, and that's politicizing. And we don't want politicizing in our textbook. Now that the conservatives have taken the board, they are attempting to correct that politicizing of the curriculum. And the liberals are saying and accusing conservatives, well, look what they're doing. They're trying to bias history or government in favor of conservatives. As a conservative, and as you are conservatives, it is not necessary for us to bias our books. It is enough for us that the truth be told in our history textbooks and our other textbooks.
Mr. Clayton, you mentioned that you weren't for the building of charter schools or allowing tax dollars to go to help the charter school or Harmony schools. My question is, are you against all charter schools?
Well,
and secondly, if you aren't, doesn't that open up real legal issues in terms of saying that you won't fund something that's Muslim? And then also, I'd like to hear on vouchers.
Thank you, but let me answer that. Let me answer that. Tell you the Muslims, bring the lawsuit. Just go ahead and bring it in. Let's see what it does. Because I'm not going to go on that board and pander to a group in any way. My concern is that our students in this state get a fair, balanced, honest, and truthful education inside those classrooms. And you talk about politicizing, that would be a political issue. I'll let the Attorney General and the legislature deal with that. I am an educator, not a politician. So when I go down there, someone asked me, Mr. Clay, what is going to be your number one function on that board? And I said, my number one function on that board is to educate all the other members of the board.
Thank you. Ms. Parsons, would you like to? More?
Okay, the charter school, would you repeat that part, please?
What is your view on all, are you against all charter schools, and what is your view on vouchers?
Now, I work in a regular public school. A charter school is funded with public money. The public, however, does not provide facilities. Recently, the state board has kind of indicated it wants to go into the real estate business for charter schools. Not all charter schools have been successful. Not all charter companies have been successful. If we have charter schools that are really successful and are shining, my recommendation is for regular public schools to go take a look at them and find out what they're doing correctly, and take it back to our regular public schools. I don't see a reason to replace one form of public education with another if we simply can improve what we've done. So that's where I stand on. I'm not opposed to charter schools if they're working. I'm not, at this point, in favor of building buildings for those companies.
And vouchers?
Not with tax money.
Vouchers, are you for vouchers?
I have no problem with vouchers whatsoever, but let me say this about vouchers. We give $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 to a family to take their child out of a public school and take it to a private school. Great. In a sense, we're expending the same money because that's about what would we spend on that child in the regular school. But how far are we going to go with that? Where do we stop sending kids to private school with public money until the private schools are so large they've turned into public schools? I still say we should zero in on correcting what's wrong with our public schools, and I'll tell you what's wrong with them. They're not run by educators, they're run by politicians down in Austin, and that's the biggest issue.
Do you want to comment on charter schools and vouchers?
Just recently in the Dallas Morning News, I wrote a letter to the editor in regards to the charter school funding. First and foremost, the permanent school fund is not funded by taxpayer money directly. It is actually an investment fund that they had since the 1800s. Not many people, or 1890s, sorry. Not many people know that. So the direct funds of the permanent school fund is not a taxpayer issue. That fund is an investment. It's been invested year after year after year, and it has built and built and built with interest and whatnot. And so, that is not an issue, really, a taxpayer issue. What they're doing, though, with these charter schools is they are loaning them the money for their buildings, and they're expecting, to be paid back with interest. So they're thinking of it as an investment. I believe that charter schools do have a potential to help public school education in finding different solutions, different philosophies, and different techniques that will be positive for all children. So as far as the ethnic diversities of the charter schools, that's something that we should look into. Maybe the charter needs to have something more definitive about.
Thank you, Ms. Parsons. Could you just address vouchers real quickly?
Sorry, okay, vouchers. Vouchers are a sticky situation. I think that parents do deserve a choice on where their kids go. But I agree that we need to fix the public school system before we can allow for complete mayhem of trying to find separate school systems for each and every child. So I think it's something that I would like to work towards, definitely, but I don't think we're ready just yet.
Okay, thank you both for coming.